Chapter 1. An Unexpected Encounter. In the dim light of the desk lamp, the expansive study felt cold and eerily silent. Michael Thornton, a man once admired by the world, now sat alone in his opulent mansion. Despite possessing immense wealth and unmatched power, he carried an emptiness deep within his soul. A devastating car accident 5 years ago had left an indelible mark on Michael's body and life. One of his legs had been severely injured, forcing him to rely on a cane to walk. Since that tragic event, he had chosen to live a secluded life, distancing himself from a world he felt had betrayed him. Tonight was no different. Michael sat by the window, gazing at the distant city lights flickering faintly in the darkness, his mind overwhelmed with restless thoughts. But the stillness of the night was suddenly shattered by the sharp sound of the doorbell. He frowned slightly. Who could be visiting at this hour? Taking his cane, Michael slowly made his way to the door. When he opened it, the sight before him was one he would never forget. A young woman, dressed in a white wedding gown now smudged with dirt, her eyes wild with fear, her body trembling in the cold night air. Her gown was torn in places, her hair disheveled as if she had braved a storm. She was breathing heavily, as though she had been running for her life, her hands clutching the doorframe as if afraid someone might drag her away at any moment. "Please, please help me," she stammered, her voice trembling as though on the verge of breaking into sobs. Michael stood frozen for a moment. Who was this woman? And why had she appeared at his doorstep in such a state? But without overthinking, his instincts guided him to step aside, offering her shelter. "Come in," he said, his voice calm yet firm. The woman hesitated for a moment before stepping inside, her wary eyes scanning her surroundings. Michael shut the door behind her, his gaze never leaving her. As she sat down on the sofa, her hands still trembling, Michael noticed more details. Her eyes were swollen, a sign of recently shed tears, and faint bruises marked her wrist. An unusual mix of curiosity and compassion stirred within him. "Who are you? And why are you here in this condition?" Michael asked, his tone a blend of caution and gentleness. The woman took a deep breath, struggling to steady herself. I'm Emily Hart. I just ran away from my wedding," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her words left Michael stunned. A runaway bride? And here she was, standing in his home, a reclusive millionaire with a limp, cut off from the outside world. Tonight, nothing would be as ordinary as it had been before. Welcome to today's heartwarming story. Let us know which city in the world you're tuning in from, so we can see how far this story has traveled. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to catch more meaningful stories like this one. Chapter 2. Unveiling the Truth. The soft glow of the living room light seemed to ease the trembling in Emily's gaze. She sat huddled on the velvet sofa, her hands clutching the warm cup of tea Michael had just handed her. The silence stretched between them like a heavy blanket, but Michael didn't push. He sat across from her in an armchair, maintaining a respectful distance, his eyes quiet but brimming with empathy. After a while, Emily finally spoke, her voice trembling and laden with suppressed anguish. "I'm Emily Hart. I just ran away from my wedding." She hesitated as though saying it out loud would make the pain more real. But the patient look in Michael's eyes seemed to give her strength. She continued, "It wasn't a marriage I wanted. I was forced to marry Gregory Blackwood. He's wealthy, powerful, but he's also incredibly abusive." Michael's hand tightened slightly around his cane, his eyes flashing with anger at the horrors she must have endured. Yet his voice remained calm. "You don't have to say any more if you're not ready, but if you need a place to stay, you can stay here for as long as you like." Emily looked up, her tear-filled eyes meeting Michael's. Surprise and gratitude were etched across her face. "You don't even know who I am. Why would you help me?" Michael replied, his voice steady and warm. "Because everyone deserves a chance to escape their pain." His words hit Emily like a wave, leaving her speechless. For the first time in months, she felt safe, even if only for a fleeting moment. Holding the cup of tea tightly, Emily murmured, "Thank you. I truly don't know what to do anymore." Michael's gaze softened, filled with compassion. "Then let's start with finding peace. You're safe here." In the quiet stillness of the room, they sat across from each other, both carrying their own scars. Yet in that shared silence, it seemed they had found a small glimmer of light in the darkness. Chapter 3. Two Lonely Hearts. The days that followed in the sprawling mansion passed quietly. Emily, though still carrying her unease, began to feel this place was a safe haven. She spent her time cleaning, cooking, and tending to small details Michael seemed to have neglected for a long time. Michael observed her silently. He wasn't used to having someone else in his space, but something about Emily brought warmth to the cold, empty halls of the mansion. For the first time in years, he realized he didn't feel as lonely, even though they rarely exchanged words. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the large windows, Emily entered Michael's study. She started dusting the shelves and accidentally discovered an old photo album tucked away in a drawer. Curious, she opened it and flipped through the pages. The pictures revealed a younger man, vibrant and full of life. Bright eyes, a confident smile. He stood on stages, shook hands with partners, and attended grand events. Emily brought the album to Michael, who sat in the corner of the room with his cane resting by his side. "You were very different once, weren't you?" she asked gently, her voice curious but soft. Michael glanced at the photos and a heavy look crossed his face. He sighed, sitting back in his chair, his gaze drifting toward the window as though searching for a distant memory. "I was," he began, his voice low and contemplative. "That was me before the accident." Emily waited patiently, not pushing him. Michael continued, as if allowing himself to share for the first time. "5 years ago, I was in a terrible car accident. It didn't just take away my ability to walk normally. It took away much of my faith in life. I used to think I was invincible, that I had everything. But that accident, it took more than I ever imagined." Emily quietly set the album down and sat across from him. "Then why do you live alone? Isn't there anyone to stand by you?" she asked, her eyes filled with concern. Michael chuckled softly, but it wasn't a laugh of joy. "There was. But when I was no longer the best version of myself, they left. Friends, partners, even the person I once loved. They didn't want to stay tied to someone who wasn't who I used to be." Emily could feel the bitterness in his words, but it also made her feel closer to him. Gently, she placed her hand on the table, near but not touching his. "Maybe they weren't the ones worthy of you," she said softly. "Loss doesn't diminish a person's worth." Michael looked at her, and for the first time, a glimmer of curiosity and appreciation lit up in his eyes. "And what about you, Emily? What made you run away in that wedding dress?" Emily froze. His question touched on the pain she had been hiding, but his sincerity made her feel she could let her guard down. "I think maybe I found someone who understands my pain," she said, her voice trembling, "but I'm not sure I'm ready to talk about it yet." Michael nodded, not pressing her further. He understood that some wounds needed time to heal, and so two lonely hearts began to find solace in each other's presence. Chapter 4. The Reason for Running Away. A quiet evening enveloped the room as Emily and Michael sat together in the living room. The flames in the fireplace danced against the walls, casting warm shadows. Neither spoke, each savoring the rare peace. Yet in the stillness, memories crept back unbidden. Emily let out a soft sigh, her hands clutching the warm cup of tea. Michael glanced at her, sensing the weight of her thoughts. "Emily, you don't have to share if you're not ready," Michael said, his deep voice gentle. Emily looked up, her eyes flickering with pain and determination. She set her cup down on the table, her hands trembling slightly. "No, I want to," she began, her voice wavering. "I can't keep running from my past. Maybe you'll understand me better if I tell you." Michael nodded, his gaze steady and filled with empathy. "I was born into a wealthy family," Emily began, her tone laced with bitterness. "My parents always controlled everything in my life, my friends, my education, even the man I was supposed to marry." She paused, her eyes distant as if reliving her memories. "Gregory Blackwood was their choice," Emily continued, her voice dropping. "He was wealthy, powerful, and a business partner of my family. On the surface, he was the perfect gentleman, but the reality—" She swallowed hard as if the words were too heavy to bear. He was abusive, and I'm not just talking about physically. Michael remained silent, his grip tightening on his cane, his eyes flashing with anger. Gregory never respected me, Emily said, tears rolling down her cheeks. To him, I was just a possession. I tried to refuse the marriage, but my parents wouldn't listen. They said our family's reputation would collapse if I didn't marry him. She turned to Michael, her eyes filled with anguish. On the wedding day, I couldn't take it anymore. While everyone was busy with the preparations, I ran. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away. And then I found your door. A wave of powerful emotions surged through Michael. Sympathy, anger, and a fierce protectiveness. He couldn't fathom the pain Emily had endured. Emily, he said, his voice low but resolute, you did the right thing. No one deserves to live under that kind of oppression. I'm so sorry for what you've been through. Emily offered a faint smile through her tears, comforted by Michael's sincerity. Thank you, Michael, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know what I'll do next, but at least, here, I feel safe. Michael nodded, his eyes steady and determined. You won't face this alone, I promise, he said firmly. That night, the distance between their two lonely hearts lessened. Though both carried wounds from their pasts, they began to realize that together, they might find the strength to heal. Chapter 5. A tense confrontation. As the fiery hues of the sunset bathed the grounds of the mansion, Gregory arrived. He stepped out of a sleek black car, his cold demeanor matched only by the fury in his piercing gaze. Emily saw him through the window and instinctively stepped back, trembling. He's here, she whispered, her voice filled with fear. Michael rose, gripping his cane tightly. Though he knew he couldn't physically overpower Gregory, his determined eyes held firm. You don't have to face him alone. I'll handle this, he said, his voice calm but resolute. Michael stepped outside to meet Gregory, who was standing at the gates of the estate. Michael Thornton, Gregory sneered. What an interesting hideout for Emily. But she's my wife. Hand her over, and we won't have a problem. Michael smirked, his gaze sharp as steel. Emily isn't a possession for you to reclaim, he replied, his voice laced with defiance. She left you for a good reason, and I won't let you drag her back to the hell you created for her. Gregory let out a cold laugh, stepping closer. You think you can protect her? A cripple like you? He mocked, his tone dripping with contempt, but his eyes betrayed a simmering rage as Michael remained unfazed. Michael took a step forward, planting his cane firmly into the ground to steady himself. His voice was steady and unwavering. I may not be perfect, but that doesn't stop me from doing what's right. If you want to take Emily, you'll have to get through me first. Gregory narrowed his eyes, his mocking expression shifting into something far more dangerous. I won't let someone like you stand in my way, he growled, his voice low and threatening. Before Gregory could make a move, Emily emerged from behind Michael. Though her body trembled, she fought to keep her composure. She was tired of living in fear. Enough, Gregory, Emily shouted. I am not yours. I am not a possession for you to control. Gregory turned toward Emily, his face contorted with rage. You think you can escape me? You owe me, he snarled. Emily stepped closer, standing beside Michael. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. I owe you nothing, she said firmly. I've lived in fear for far too long, but I won't let you manipulate my life anymore. Michael placed a steadying hand on Emily's shoulder, lending her strength. She's made herself clear, Michael said coldly to Gregory. Now leave before I call the police. Gregory glared at them both, his eyes burning with fury and hatred, but he knew he couldn't act now. After a tense pause, he turned on his heel and began to walk away. Don't think this is over, Gregory hissed before stepping into his car. I will be back. As his car disappeared beyond the gates, Emily felt a massive weight lift from her chest. She turned to Michael, tears welling in her eyes. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Michael looked at her with gentle but steadfast eyes. You don't need to thank me. From now on, you won't face him alone. In that moment, a powerful bond formed between them. It wasn't just empathy. It was a shared determination to protect what mattered most, Emily's freedom and dignity. Chapter 6. The decision to stay. The days that followed were steeped in tension for Emily. Despite Michael's reassurances, The looming threat of Gregory haunted her every moment. She knew he wasn't just an abusive man. He was dangerously manipulative, willing to go to any lengths to get what he wanted. One evening, as Michael worked in his study, Emily quietly stepped in. She stood hesitantly for a moment before speaking. "Michael, I think I should leave," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't let you get caught up in this. Gregory has no limits, and I don't want you to be in danger because of me." Michael looked up from his desk, his eyes resolute. "Emily, that's not going to happen," he said, his voice low but firm. "Do you think I'll let you go back to him? This isn't just about you anymore. I can't stand by and watch you endure any more pain." Emily shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "You don't understand, Michael," she said, her voice breaking. "Gregory has power and money. He can do whatever he wants, and I don't want you to become his target." Michael stood, leaning on his cane for support, his face a mix of anger and determination. "Emily, I understand the risks better than you think," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "But I also know you've suffered enough. I don't care who Gregory is. If he dares to come here, I'll face him myself." Emily stepped closer, placing her hand on Michael's arm. "You don't have to do this for me," she whispered. "I've gotten used to defending myself." Michael looked directly into her eyes, his voice soft yet unwavering. "Emily, you don't have to face everything alone anymore. You deserve to live a life free of fear, and if there's anything I can do to help you achieve that, I will." Emily gazed at him, feeling the sincerity in his every word. Though fear still lingered, a part of her heart began to trust Michael, the man who seemed cold on the outside, but had a deeply compassionate soul. At last, she sighed and nodded. "All right, Michael. I'll stay," she said quietly but resolutely. "But if things get dangerous, I want you to promise me you won't risk yourself for me." Michael smiled gently, his eyes shining with determination. "I promise to do whatever it takes to protect you, Emily," he said, "not just because you deserve to be protected, but because I can't bear to see you hurt anymore." That night, both of them knew the battle with Gregory was far from over, but they also realized that, no matter how difficult it would be, they wouldn't face it alone anymore. Chapter 7, Facing the Enemy. The gloomy morning hung heavy over the mansion as a sleek black car rolled up to the gate. Gregory stepped out, his cold eyes scanning the property, a smug smirk curling his lips. Behind him stood a group of his men, their intimidating presence adding weight to his approach. He marched to the front door, pounding on it with a force that echoed his aggression throughout the house. Inside, Michael felt the tension rise. Gripping his cane tightly, he stood and steadied himself. His expression remained calm, but his eyes burned with unyielding determination. As the door swung open, the two men faced each other. Michael's calm exterior betrayed no fear, though the air between them was electric with animosity. "She will not go back to you," Michael stated, his tone steady and resolute. Gregory squinted, his smirk turning into a sneer. "And what will you do about it, cripple?" he spat, his voice dripping with mockery. "Do you think she'll stay with someone like you? She belongs to me." Michael didn't flinch. His grip on the cane tightened, but his voice remained steady. "Emily doesn't belong to anyone. She's a person, not your possession, and I won't let you hurt her again." Gregory took another step forward, his tone shifting to menace. "You'd better think twice before crossing me. Hand her over or you'll regret it." Before he could finish his threat, the piercing sound of police sirens broke through the tense atmosphere. Flashing blue and red lights illuminated the driveway as two patrol cars pulled up. Gregory turned sharply, his expression morphing into one of shock and fury. 4 police officers stepped out, striding toward him with purpose. "Gregory Blackwood," one officer announced, holding up a warrant. "You're under arrest for domestic abuse and issuing threats." Gregory attempted to resist, but the officers were ready. They quickly subdued him, snapping handcuffs onto his wrists. As they escorted him toward the patrol car, he twisted his head to glare at Michael, his voice rising in rage. "This isn't over, Thornton. I'll be back for her." Michael stood firm, his gaze unwavering as Gregory was shoved into the police car. As the chaos subsided and the cars began to drive away, Emily stepped hesitantly out of the house. Her eyes were wide with worry, but as she watched Gregory disappear, relief washed over her. She turned to Michael, her voice breaking with emotion. "You did all of this for me," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. Michael offered a small, reassuring smile. "Not just for you, Emily," he replied, his voice warm but steady. "No one deserves to live in fear, and I wasn't going to let you face him alone." Under the soft light of the morning, Gregory's car disappeared into the distance, leaving an overwhelming sense of relief behind. For the first time in years, Emily felt truly safe. Michael, with his quiet strength and unwavering determination, wasn't just a protector, he was a beacon of hope and trust for her fragile heart. Chapter 8. Love Blossoms. After Gregory's arrest, a rare peace settled over Michael's mansion. The once heavy, oppressive atmosphere was replaced by a renewed sense of life and hope. For Emily, the days no longer felt like a prison of painful memories. Instead, she began to see herself as a resilient woman emerging from the ashes of her past. Emily spent more time with Michael, not just assisting him with daily tasks, but also helping him restore the once abandoned garden he had cherished. Together, they worked side by side, sharing laughter and exchanging stories about the smallest details of their lives. Slowly, Michael realized that Emily wasn't just transforming his physical surroundings. She was awakening something long dormant in his heart. One evening, the garden shimmered with an enchanting glow under the moonlight. The flowers Emily had planted had begun to bloom, their fragrance filling the crisp night air. The two of them sat on a wooden bench by a small table, the still water of a nearby pond reflecting the glittering stars above. Michael sat in quiet contemplation for a long moment, his gaze fixed on Emily. The sight of her soft brown hair cascading over her shoulders, her eyes alight with hope, stirred a long-forgotten peace within him. With a deep breath, he reached for her hand, his grip slightly trembling yet resolute. "Emily," Michael began, his voice warm but tinged with nervousness, "I've been thinking a lot. About you, about me, and about everything we've been through." Emily turned to look at him, her eyes glimmering in the moonlight. "I once believed that my life ended the day I lost my ability to walk," he continued, his voice thick with emotion. "It wasn't just my legs I lost. It was my confidence, my purpose, and my belief that life could still hold meaning. But then you appeared." He paused, searching for the right words to articulate the depth of his feelings. "You've given me a reason to move forward, Emily. You've shown me that strength isn't about being whole. It's about how we overcome the scars we carry. You've taught me that I'm not only capable of love, but that I deserve to be loved." Emily couldn't hold back her tears. They flowed freely down her cheeks, but they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of profound gratitude and joy. "Michael," she whispered, her voice breaking, "you don't realize how much you've changed my life. You didn't just save me from Gregory. You saved my heart, a heart I thought had lost hope forever. You made me believe I deserve freedom, that I deserve happiness. I can't imagine my life without you." Michael gently lifted her hand and placed it over his chest. "Then don't leave, Emily," he said softly. "Stay. Not because I need you, but because I want us to build something together, not on the pain of our past, but on the hope of what's to come." Under the tender glow of the moonlight, Michael leaned in, and they shared their first kiss. It wasn't just a kiss of love, it was a kiss of healing, of promises made for a new beginning. The soft breeze whispered through the garden, carrying with it the blessings of nature. Two hearts once burdened by deep pain had found solace in each other. Their love didn't just fill the voids in their hearts, it gave them the strength to embrace a future, brimming with hope and love. Chapter 9. Overcoming Challenges Together. With Emily's unwavering support, Michael began to confront the challenges he had long avoided. He enrolled in an advanced physical therapy program to improve his mobility. Emily remained by his side, encouraging him and accompanying him through each grueling session. One day, after an exhausting therapy session, Michael sat on the bench in his sprawling backyard. Emily brought him a glass of lemonade and sat down beside him. "You've made so much progress, Michael. I'm really proud of you," she said, her eyes shining with encouragement. Michael looked at her, a faint smile crossing his face. "I wouldn't have had the courage to try again without you. he replied. "You've changed my life, Emily, and I want to do the same for you." Emily smiled softly, placing her hand over his. "We've changed each other, Michael, and I think that's what destiny had planned for us all along." Together they gazed at the garden, where the flowers were in full bloom, a testament to the life and hope blossoming within them. Chapter 10. Complete Happiness. With Emily's help, Michael overcame not just physical pain, but also began to open his heart to the world. He started hosting charity events at his mansion, using his wealth to support those in need. Emily enthusiastically joined these efforts, and their shared vision and commitment only strengthened their bond. At one such charity gala, Michael, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, stepped onto the stage with Emily by his side. Holding her hand, he looked into her eyes with unreserved affection. "Today is not just a day for us to come together and help our community, but also a day for me to share the most important part of my life," Michael said, his voice steady and sincere. He knelt down and took a simple but radiant ring from his pocket. "Emily, you've given me not only love, but also hope. I can't imagine my life without you. Will you spend the rest of your life with me, building something even more beautiful together?" Emily gazed at him, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, Michael, I will," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. The room erupted in applause, but for Michael and Emily, the world at that moment was just the two of them. After a simple yet meaningful wedding in the mansion's garden, Michael and Emily began their new life together. They became not only partners in life, but also in purpose, ready to face any challenges that came their way. Michael continued his physical therapy and made significant strides. Though his legs didn't fully recover, he learned to love himself more, thanks to Emily's patience and unconditional love. Emily, on the other hand, launched a project to support women who had suffered from abuse, inspired by the way Michael had helped her. Together, they created something extraordinary, not just for each other, but for the community around them. The dark days were behind them, replaced by light and love. Michael and Emily, once fragmented pieces of life, had found completeness in each other, a perfect fit in a meaningful and beautiful picture. Thank you for following our story. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Your feedback means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like, and share this story with others.